to me, this team's been special because it's been everybody. I mean, if you look at our entire season, it's like someone that makes a big play at the biggest moment to go out there and win a football game, if that's offense, defense, or special teams. And so I think the fact that it's been everybody, it's not just offense, it's not just defense, it's everybody on the entire team is something I'll remember this season by, and hopefully we can do it the right way and get this final win.
Eagles running back Saquon Barkley said he learned a lot going through some trying seasons with the Giants.
It was definitely tough, but I think that's why I'm the player I am today and the reason why I'm having the success I am today. And I always saw this moment coming. I always saw this success coming. At the time, I thought I was going to be still in a New York Giant uniform. Life happens for a reason. Everything happens, and I'm in the right place and I'm supposed to be.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the Sports Grid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Progressive's Auto Quote Explorer lets you easily compare direct rates from different insurance companies, so you can be confident you're getting the right one, even if it's not with Progressive. Way more confident than you were when you bought that TV in a parking lot. It just happened to not come in a box or include a remote. And when you finally managed to turn it on, all it displayed was the menu of Grumpy's Tacos. So use Progressive's Auto Quote Explorer and be confident you're getting insurance that's right for you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Accomplishing goals is hard, but when your goal is to learn a new language, Babbel makes it easy. Babbel is designed with you in mind. From expert-created lessons to conversational video units and even live classes, you can personalize your Babbel experience to be exactly what you need to really learn a new language more easily. Go ahead, set a goal for yourself. Accomplish it with Babbel. Try Babbel for free. Go to BABBEL.com. That's Babbel.com.
No way football is played in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
It is the Friday before the Football Friday, ahead of Super Bowl Sunday in Super Bowl 59. We welcome you to Football Full Circle, live right here on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is Joe Lisi. That's the mastermind of the pigskin. I am Ben Stevens. We are 9 days away from Super Bowl Sunday in the Big Easy, where Joe will be next week, all week long on Radio Row in New Orleans. This is Lisi's final appearance on FFC for this 2024 NFL season. We are glad to have him here one final time to get his thoughts on where the odds stand right now for Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and the Eagles. We'll talk news around the NFL, all of that on this Friday up until 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, a lot of football shows to go around, right? We're culminating with Super Bowl 59. Doesn't get better than that. A rematch of a couple of years ago. A lot of the prop markets in place. We start to see more and more depending upon the books. You know, we'll break that down as the week progresses, to your point, Ben. But, you know, this is the calm before the storm, right? We're going to get some storylines. I've already seen some people come out and say, you know, shutting down Saquon Barkley or potentially limiting and containing Pat Mahomes. Those are all storylines that we'll see play out. But at the end of the day, best players step up in terms of the bright lights, big city. So I think both of these teams will be just fine next Sunday as this game plays out.
Big city in the Big Easy, the biggest stage of each and every year around the National Football Leagues, and the biggest players you would expect to make that impact. We'll talk to prop market. We'll make some comparisons between those players, compare these rosters, and who has the edges 9 days away from Super Bowl Sunday. Joe, some news around the National Football League yesterday involving longtime Baltimore Ravens kicker, one of the best to do it in the NFL, Justin Tucker. A bombshell report in the Baltimore Banner, a local journalistic paper there in the Charm City, accusing Justin Tucker of inappropriate sexual misconduct in massage therapy sessions. Justin Tucker issued a statement yesterday calling all of those accusations unequivocally false. This report is being dealt with. The allegations, as the NFL released a statement yesterday, are being looked into. A lot, Joe, still needs to be learned about this situation, but Justin Tucker being investigated by the NFL league office after those claims of inappropriate behavior in massage therapy sessions.
Yeah, unfortunate circumstances. You want to say always innocent until proven guilty. And just because a report comes out, you want the investigation to go as deep as possible to make sure that they have all the information and that either, it's right or wrong in regards to Justin Tucker. So we'll see how that plays out. That being said, though, it's always negativity surrounding the organization. They didn't get to the AFC Championship, certainly didn't get to the Super Bowl. And it's a season where you could say that they didn't live up to expectations with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And on the flip side, for Justin Tucker, had one of his worst seasons as a kicker. Was this potentially on the horizon that this report came out? I mean, none of us really know. But again, at the end of the day, the team has to address it. It wasn't the first situation. We saw this play out, unfortunately, with Deshaun Watson a few years ago. And, situations in the offseason always seem to creep up. And this is what can make or break teams, right? And especially careers. So, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but not a good situation for the Baltimore Ravens right now and their lead kicker, Justin Tucker.
Of course, there are parallels in these stories between the allegations against Deshaun Watson and those made yesterday against Justin Tucker. We will let the facts come out. The NFL now investigating this as well. The league office saying they had not heard of these allegations until they got word earlier this week. The Baltimore Banner was planning to run this report on Justin Tucker and now starting to investigate. Other news around the National Football League from Thursday. We'll talk some practice reports for those teams competing in Super Bowl 59 in just a moment. But the Jacksonville Jaguars have hired their new defensive coordinator, filling out the staff under Liam Cohen. Anthony Campanile, who was the linebackers coach this year in Green Bay, will now be the DC in Jacksonville. Filling out his first coaching staff, Joe, as a first-time head coach in Duval County, has been a little bit of a test and challenge for Liam Cohen. He's been trying to interview his former colleagues in Tampa, but with how that situation played out between Cohen and the Buccaneers, taking the Jacksonville job almost in secrecy and interviewing once again in Duval County, there is some bad blood, and the Buccaneers are denying those interview requests.
Duval, I always said that Liam Cohen, right, probably has the trap door behind the books in his house, right? This guy's a little freaky to say the least, but it could be he could just be a winner. You never know. But Campanile, right, is a Jersey guy. He's a Bosco guy, former coach, right? Coached at Bergen Catholic. So I think it's a great hire. I mean, I love to see those Jersey guys step up. Duval, I still think Liam Cohen will bring success to Jacksonville, but at the end of the day, I want to say his media presence and how he handles, the podium at times is a little bit freaky, no?
I don't know if I want to describe it as freaky, especially following the conversation we just had, but I get the point as well. Joe, Anthony Campanile, any relation to Nunzio?
Yes, brother.
Campanile?
Yeah.
Brother. Wow, Nunzio, former interim head coach.
The whole family coaches, former players and coaches in Bergen Catholic, Bosco. Years they were part of that group after Schiano and Darren Rizzi left, obviously for the NFL and that whole coaching staff. The Campaniles were the next big family in terms of Bergen County coming up.
Did you ever meet the Campaniles at all?
Through one, I don't know them personally, like through fundraisers at Bosco, but years ago we're talking. We're not talking any recent precedents.
Anthony Campanile, as we said, this past year serving as the Packers run game coordinator and linebackers coach, only 42 years old, considered a rising star, will get his first chance as a true defensive coordinator under Liam Cohen, who I guess might be a little bit freaky. Joe, some good news in a new year around the National Football League. Of course, this 2024 season was the first of the dynamic kickoff. The changes in the rules designed to hopefully have more kick returns and also protect player safety. It seems to have done just that. We saw more kick returns this year than in any of the previous 3 seasons, and concussions around the National Football League down by 17% year over year, a historic low this season. The dynamic kickoff took a while to get used to. It looked a little bit funky in terms of the formations, but it does seem to be a success.
Absolutely. Again, you keep special teams a part of the game. Love it or hate it in terms of how we start, at least the kickoff is an integral part of the game to some capacity, right? Expecting or just taking it out of the game, giving the ball at the 30-yard line or the 25-yard line to start the game and just cutting all of those, I want to say, role type of jobs that potentially could swing momentum, especially in a game either way. It's just insignificant. I'm happy. Is it the best recipe? No. But at the end of the day, it's better than what they were suggesting. And again, special teams matter. It's another part of the game that could still change the complexity or outcome. And I'm happy that they're keeping it in. I mean, I don't think we elevate or tweak it in any degree. I think it's here to stay. And that's a good thing for the NFL and even college football.
We see live action in the NFL on those kick returns. Of course, it has lessened what had been one of the, if not the most dangerous plays in all of football, and it's become impactful. Nico Remigio for Kansas City. We have seen Philadelphia force fumbles on kickoffs throughout the playoffs. More from practice ahead of Super Bowl week next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. And we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that vibe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Federal officials approved a new type of pain pill designed to eliminate the risks of addiction and overdose associated with opioid medications like Vicodin and OxyContin. This update brought to you by Skyrizi. Explore proven results with Skyrizi. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration said it approved Vertex Pharmaceuticals' Journavx for short-term pain that often follows surgery or injuries. It's the first new pharmaceutical approach to treating pain in more than 20 years, offering an alternative to both opioids and over-the-counter medications like ibuprofen and acetaminophen. This season, the NFL recorded its fewest number of concussions since it began tracking the data in 2015. The league announced Thursday the total of 182 concussions during games and practices in both the preseason and regular season represented a 17% drop from 2023. The previous low for the same period was 187 in 2022, not counting the 2020 season when COVID protocols canceled the preseason. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
go find a horseshoe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It's not quite Super Bowl week yet, but the countdown has ticked into single digits. Only 9 days away, including this Friday on FFC, from Super Bowl Sunday in New Orleans. And Joe, before the guys and the two teams depart to the Big Easy, back on the practice field yesterday on a Thursday afternoon, really starting that game week preparation just a few days out. And a couple of familiar faces who either team has not seen in a while. Let's start with Philadelphia. One of their leaders, Brandon Graham, who last played in late November, suffering a torn triceps injury, had his practice window activated yesterday to be back out on the turf with the Birds. Now, is he going to play in Super Bowl 59? We'll see when we get closer. But just to have him back out there, Joe, as one of the vocal leaders and the longtime staples of this organization, has to be a plus for Philly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a leader of the defense. Anytime you get that player back, potentially, even for a limited role in a Super Bowl type of atmosphere or game, it could just change the whole intensity of that unit, right? To have that player back or in the huddle for a limited amount of plays, right? And that's all you could ask for, at this particular point. Asking Brendan Graham to come in and produce exactly the way he did in the middle part of the season and be the anchor of that defensive line, I think is asking way too much, but potentially in a third down situation, a role type of situation with maybe the game on the line or a big third down or a big play upcoming, I think Brandon Graham's presence could be a factor. So always good. Does it make or break the cap for me? Oh, he'll be in that lineup? No. At the end of the day, you put him, maybe you'll get a few plays, and if he plays the whole game, great. If not, it's not going to make or break the cap in any way. They're 1.5-point dogs for a reason. The team that they're going up against has won 2 straight Super Bowls.
Yes, that is certainly what is happening, Joe. But just to have BG there, 15 seasons, all with the Eagles, and of course, one of the defining plays perhaps in Eagles franchise history during Super Bowl 52, that strip sack that, of course, led to glory. One of Donnie Rightside favorite moments of his life, as I'm sure he will tell you all next week in New Orleans. Again, we'll see if Brandon Graham even suits up in Super Bowl 59. You were just activating his practice window throughout regular seasons. That's the 3-week span before you even need to be truly activated off of injured reserve. We spoke to Dr. Chow earlier this week, and he said he was slightly skeptical that Brandon Graham would actually play in Super Bowl 59, but just worth noting to have that presence back around in the preparation, the build-up, the lead-up for Super Bowl 59 is always good. Sky Moore hasn't played for Kansas City since mid-October, but did play in Super Bowl 57 against these Eagles and scored a touchdown in the second half. He was also back on the practice turf yesterday for KC. Not sure he's going to play, not sure he's going to factor into the rotation, even if he is able to be out there, Joe. But it's just a good sign for these teams getting some final practices in their home city before they head to New Orleans, to have everybody out there who really can be out there.
Yeah, and if injuries do occur, you don't want to see it happen, but there's depth at certain positions, right? Especially wide receiver, heading into this matchup, you could say Kansas City is at the healthiest it's been and strongest it's been now with the emergence of Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy. You still have the DeAndre Hopkins to a limited capacity, Juju Schuster that stepped up in back-to-back divisional games and the championship game. So, yeah, so that's what you want to see, right? I mean, expecting them to be the X factor or the game changer, I think, is asking way too much. But if they tack a number on, maybe, it's a possibility to, get over 5.5 receiving yards for Sky Moore. I mean, why not?
Why not, right? Maybe we'll see if that number does end up popping up. Jahan Dotson, for instance, for Philadelphia, his props for Super Bowl 59, a half of a reception and 3.5 receiving yards. Everybody pulling the same rope, trying to win the biggest prize in football. That would be the Lombardi Trophy. Lisa Guy, we'll get more about practice reports next week in New Orleans as everybody is out there. Of course, a keen eye will be paid to Philadelphia. Left knee of Jalen Hurts. How close to 100% can he be by the time we reach Super Bowl Sunday in 9 days? How about the offensive line? Cam Jurgens, with the back issue that kept him from starting in the NFC Championship game, did play in the second half because he had to fill in for relief of Landon Dickerson, who injured his knee as well. That will be the primary focus of our practice/injury reports next week in New Orleans.
Yeah, again, I just think when you look at the practice reports and you look at everything in regards to the game, and you just look at the players heading into this matchup, it's important, right? here, the biggest thing I think when you just break down the game from the gambling perspective, Ben, is what is the game plan for Kansas City? And I say more so Kansas City to attack the front seven of Philadelphia. Are they going to be able to run the football, consistently against that front seven? Because we haven't seen teams be able to do that right now. And that is the biggest thing. I think that when you just look at the game plan and you look at the practice reports, yeah, Kareem Hunt's been good. Pacheco, okay, hot or cold. Can they run the football? Because I'll tell you this right now, just from the football perspective, if they can't run the football, I don't know if they win the game.
And that will be a huge key, Joe. It will be part of the keys that we discuss as we compare these rosters, we compare these key positions, key matchups, and determine who has the edge. I don't think anybody would tell you Kansas City has a better backfield than that of Saquon Barkley at the moment, but it will be crucial, right? You need to at least establish some sort of a ground game to attack Philadelphia so they don't just sit back there and bait Patrick Mahomes into short throw after short throw and maybe death by a bajillion paper cuts. It will be a part of the offensive scheme we know that Andy Reid and Matt Nagy are working on at this moment. We'll talk more about how Joe sees Super Bowl 59 on the other side of the break. We'll look at where the odds are right now and the players that will decide the outcome. It's Lacey's final day on FFC. Before he heads to the Big Easy, we need his thoughts, his early breakdowns for Super Bowl 59. He's locked, he's loaded, he's ready. Joe Lacey up next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1988 Super Bowl 22, Doug Williams wins game MVP as Washington destroys the Denver Broncos 42-10.
Sanders beats Haynes. Sanders out in front. 80 yards, touchdown. Hello, sports fans. Whoa.
Williams tosses 4 touchdowns, including 2 to former USFL star Ricky Sanders. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
The uncanny valley, that feeling of unease you get from humanoid androids whose looks creep you out on a subconscious level.
I am wearing my smiling face. Does that displease you?
New tech from Osaka University dynamically synthesizes android facial movements to express their mood.
Yes, I'm tickled pink.
Breaking down moods into overlapping waves that blend naturally.
I'm running on fumes.
Mixing in realistic breathing, eye blinks, and even spontaneous yawning. Real emotions enhancing communications with robots in a more natural, human-like manner.
In other words, just another uncanny valley Sunday in synthetic human land.
Follow me at Chicapalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The early line.
Donnie Rightside watching in his basement by himself without his wife and kid.
No. But the last one, I did watch it, both me and my daughter, explaining it to her how it went all the way through, and it was fantastic. Maybe the best bonding that we've ever had, and I look forward to doing it this year again.
It was really beautiful, man. I'm a little bit emotional.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
It's The Early Line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you.
if you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC. It is also Lisi's final FFC for this NFL season. Big Gun heads to the Big Easy for our Super Bowl coverage on SportsGrid.
Making it sound like I'm going around the world. I'm going this guy last show before the big show. He's gone and he'll be back. You know where to find me. You know where I'll be. Joe Lisi's last show before the big show, only on Football Full Circle.
Yesterday on the early line, I was hitting Donnie with the same thing. This is Donnie Rightside final show on the early line. And then would take a pause and see his reaction before I said of this football season as he heads out to New Orleans. But spot the lie, there is not one. Joe Lisi will be out in the Big Easy next week, anchoring SportsGrid Super Bowl coverage live from Radio Row. So if we don't talk next week here on Football Full Circle, we got to make sure we deliver the people what they need. Lisi's handicaps, what the human algo is seeing 9 days out from Super Bowl 59. Lisi, guys, still a 1.5 where it was basically when we spoke on Monday following championship weekend in the NFL. Minus 126 on the money line, give or take about a nickel from where it was earlier this week. We have seen the total drop by a full point from 49.5 to 48 and a hook. How are you still feeling about Super Bowl 59, 9 days out from the biggest game day of the year?
Yeah, from the side perspective, I still lean Philadelphia, and I lean to the under. Again, it's a tough game to cap, right? Because the spread is indicative of why wouldn't you take Kansas City just laying basically a pick, going for a three-peat. I know the public dog is the favorite. Everybody loves Jalen. Everybody loves Saquon, but I just feel they're a little bit more balanced offensively than what you see out of KC. Typically, I'm all in on a Super Bowl over, but when you start it so high, I feel like for me, I'm not playing this total pre-kick until I see this game play out, right? I'd much rather dive in after a scoreless 7 or 8 minutes trying to get a low 40 number than I would, trying to get this game 30-20. And let's not forget the last time these teams played in the regular season, even though it was rain-filled in Arrowhead, it was basically, 21-17 in favor of the Eagles last year. So I lean to the under, but that doesn't mean it can't trend to the over later in the game. So that's what I see. I'm more involved in the props early on. But again, it's early in the week. We have a lot to dissect and a lot to delve into. So it's just getting started as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely so, Joe. And when you see a margin this tight, right, we're talking 34 cents of difference on the money line, 1.5 in the spread between two of the 5 defenses this year, regular season, postseason in the NFL, to allow fewer than 20 points per game, and why we would not be surprised if this game trended under. A 13-10 slugfest? Probably not. 24-21, 27-21, somebody coming out on top, winning a tightly contested single score, but ultimately under game. I don't think that would be overly shocking to anybody that has watched these two teams throughout this NFL season. But Joe, when it's this tight of a margin, having an edge, having a matchup advantage is going to be crucial. So let's go position by position, look at the prop market, find some of those best bets, and have that conversation. Of course, we start at the quarterback position. Patrick Mahomes, 251.5 is his prop. 29.5 his rushing yards number. Jalen Hurts, 210 and a hook through the air. 41.5 his rushing yards prop. Lisi, guy, it feels as though there is a gap, of course, that favors Patrick Mahomes, given his pedigree, 3 Super Bowl rings, 3 Super Bowl MVPs. But Jalen Hurts has led Philadelphia now to a second Super Bowl in the last 3 years. How large of a gap do you think there is between our two quarterbacks in Super Bowl 59?
I don't think there's that much of a gap, and it's not. I want to watch my words here. Jalen Hurts is a winner, so he's going to find a way, I believe, to be in the game, whether it be his legs or his arm. Even if he's not throwing for 250 yards, I still believe in his mobility and in the RPO game to put his team in a position to win this game. I believe more collectively, I believe in the offense of Philadelphia than I'll say Pat Mahomes and everybody else. And that's not a knock on Kansas City. It's just that I think if there's one team that matches up perfectly with KC, it is the Eagles.
Yep, we'll continue to talk through this roster breakdown, the player props, and who has the advantages for Super Bowl 59 on the other side of the break. We continue to break it all down 9 days out from Super Bowl Sunday. Next.
The Winning Edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. NBA, the Lakers beat the Wizards 134-96. LeBron James had 24 points and 11 assists. The Cavaliers, 137-115 winners over the Hawks. Cleveland has the best home record in the league at 23-3. The T-Wolves beat the Jazz 138-113. The Grizzlies over the Rockets 120-119. The Trailblazers beat Orlando 119-90. DeAndre Ayton had 22 points in the win. On the ice in the shootout, the Red Wings beat the Oilers 3-2. Columbus beat Vegas 2-1 in overtime. The Jets scored 4 times in the third to beat the Bruins 6-2. The Wild shut out the Canadiens 4-0. Marc-Andre Fleury with 19 saves. In overtime, the Senators beat the Capitals 5-4. The Lightning shut out the Kings 3-0. Andrei Vasilevsky made 28 saves. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now's the time to shop limited time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5 amp hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 113 through 115. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
That spice is 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Hi, my name is Khadijah, and a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick of the chicken. It's just the right amount of heat, and it gets me excited. And then, pro tip, add that cilantro lime sauce. It cools it down. If the sandwich is at 100, the cilantro lime takes it to 200. It makes me want to, tell all my friends and family.
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The Winning Edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, we continue our prop breakdown throughout Super Bowl 59. Numbers associated, but really what we're discussing here are those key matchup advantages and whose side they fall on. Joe, from a quarterback perspective, it is hard to argue that Jalen Hurts is better or more accomplished than Patrick Mahomes. Frankly, nobody in the sport right now has those distinctions. 3 Super Bowl MVPs for Patrick Mahomes in the last 6 seasons. Of course, 3 Lombardi trophies to go with it. This will be Super Bowl appearance number 5 in the last 6 years in the NFL in the 7 seasons that Patrick Mahomes has been the starter in Kansas City. But, Joe, the last time these two teams squared off in Super Bowl 57, Jalen Hurts, I think you could argue, had the better day. Now, Mahomes was efficient, 21 of 27, only 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, 44 yards on the ground. But Jalen Hurts, 304 passing yards, only 9 incompletions, a touchdown, was Philly's leading rusher with 70 yards utilizing his legs, and 3 rushing scores, one of 2 players in Super Bowl history, alongside Denver's Terrell Davis, to have 3 rushing touchdowns in a single Super Bowl. Now, he was strip sacked by Nick Bolton in the opening half, and he took it back the other way for a scoop and score, a costly mistake. But Jalen Hurts was sensational that day, and really, Joe, kind of led us to the idea that Jalen Hurts was going to maybe take the mantle as one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the NFC. It hasn't quite been that over the last 2 seasons, but still, as you said, he is a winner, and the Eagles have seen success with him under center. You obviously have to give the advantage to Patrick Mahomes, but like you, I don't think the gap is this huge, huge bridge that needs to be crossed.
No, you judge quarterbacks on, and we keep talking about the Super Bowl titles, right? Mahomes has 3, Jalen Hurts has none. Jalen cracks through and gets his first, all of a sudden, you start to close the gap. That's the perception, right? You know, with 2 minutes left in the game and needing a touchdown, who would you rather have? More, you would say, obviously, Pat Mahomes, but Jalen isn't that far behind. And again, he beats you in so many different ways, right? He can also run the football. Even though Pat got the 2 rushing touchdowns last week against the Bills, Jalen is a much more lethal runner, right? The RPO game, that ability in the open field to just, make moves and just, get the 40-yard run like he did against the LA Rams. That's always there. So, yes, Pat Mahomes has the accolades. Pat Mahomes has the edge, but not, to your point, by such a margin that if the game is 7 points and Jalen's under center, you'd feel good taking a shot in terms of the in-game perspective. Back in Hurts in that passing attack as well.
Yeah, so now let's get to the running back room, because there is no question here either. Saquon Barkley is better than either of the 2 running backs the Chiefs have, and as a whole, you give the rushing attack advantage to Philadelphia. But, Joe, as you stated, one of your key matchups to keep an eye on for Super Bowl 59, can the Chiefs establish the run, be productive with it, which obviously opens up the offense to try to exploit the best defense in the NFL all year long in Philadelphia. We start with Barkley's numbers first, then we'll look at Hunt/Pacheco. Saquon is expected to have a sensational game in Super Bowl 59, as he has had sensational game after sensational game all year long. But, of course, in this playoff run for the Birds, 22.5, the attempts prop, 112 and a hook, the rushing yards number. Joe, if Philadelphia is the right side, if the Eagles hoist a Lombardi trophy in 9 days from now in New Orleans, does Saquon Barkley have to go through every one of those numbers for the Eagles to have a chance of winning?
No. He could get to the combined total, rushing and receiving. And the reason, I'll give you a couple of for instances. If Saquon rushes for 100 yards and has 50 receiving, that's enough to get it done, right? I think it's combined rushing and receiving. And Joe, the people say, well, Joe, he's a diehard runner and he's going to get it 20, 25 times per game. He is. But let's look at last year's Super Bowl. Who was the best running back in terms of the game? It was Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey abused them in the receiving game. He had close to 80 yards receiving in that game. What about last week? James Cook, 87 yards on the ground, 49 through the air in terms of the receiving game. So that's what I look at when I look at Barkley. I'm not all in, jumping on Saquon's total, paying up for 120. Could he get there? Absolutely. I'm not suggesting he doesn't get there. I'm just saying if we're talking value, they're going to utilize him, I believe, in the passing attack as well. In addition, that's how you get that defense. So for me, that plus 270 on 25 receiving yards, which he got to in the game and the win against LA, I think that's doable. And if the number drops from an in-game perspective into the 80s or 90s or 70s, I'll take it that in-game in that regard.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, Joe, when you have a running back that can be a great receiver out of the backfield, you're not getting a discount in terms of that combo prop, the rushing plus receiving, because they really just jumble it all together and then amp it up by a few yards. I think if you are considering Saquon Barkley is the best player in this game, and how could you bet the under of 112.5? If you're thinking he's going to go over his rushing yards prop, he's probably going to go over and get close to 120, 125. 130.5 for his combo prop is not a bad look, because then you have the benefit of using him out of the backfield as a receiver as well. No doubt about it, Joe. I hear the idea that he doesn't have to go through these numbers for Philadelphia to stay competitive. That's where you get a big game and a productive game out of Jalen Hurts. But just how much production can Kansas City see on the ground? Kareem Hunt has kind of been the lead back for KC in their 2 playoff wins. 45.5 his rushing yards prop. Isaiah Pacheco seemed to be the guy at the end of Super Bowl 57 2 years ago, finishing a sensational playoff run and a great rookie campaign, the 7th rounder out of Rutgers. But of course, Joe, Pacheco suffered a significant ankle injury earlier in the year. We're not even sure we were going to see him once again in 2024 or into the postseason. How healthy is he? That remains to be seen. His prop, 20.5. Joe, if the Chiefs are going to make history and hunt down their 3rd consecutive Lombardi trophy, what does Kansas City need out of their 2 running backs?
I think a combined 100, 110, 100 and a quarter, 4 yards per carry. Now, they might have to throw to get that first, right? They might have to open up and utilize Pat Mahomes with the passing attack to run the football later in the game. And again, here's the problem. Not the problem, but the back that I'm backing, twofold. I like Pacheco anytime touchdown with the extra week of preparation plus 310. I like him to be altered as the lead back, potentially with yards. 20 and a half is so cheap, and I understand he got limited carries. But that's one or two runs where he blows right through that. So you could alter him to 30 or even 40. And then Samaje Perine, who catches the football out of the backfield, plus 950 anytime touchdown for me. So that's where I'm looking. So I'm going contrarian on the Kansas City running backs. I'm not taking Hunt in any capacity. Oh man, Hunt.
Samaje, yeah.
Why are you laughing
now?
now?
6.5 receiving, because you always have something, right? For the biggest game of every football season, you have some alt bet that seemingly is the dumbest thing the world has ever seen, and yet hits, and you have an incredibly profitable day. I've been with you. I've seen this happen on countless occasion after countless occasion. 2 years ago in the national championship, Donovan Edwards, a shell of himself behind Blake Corum for Michigan, has the biggest game he had all year long. Lisi's raking in the money. This year in the Orange Bowl, Mitchell Evans didn't even think he could have 20 receiving yards. He was over his receiving yards prop by the end of the opening possession. Last year, when we actually got to work together throughout Super Bowl week, you were all over Jawan Jennings. And it was like, what does this guy know about Jawan Jennings? He no longer plays in Knoxville. And it was the Jawan Jennings game in Super Bowl 58. The guy always finds a way of doing it. So Samaje Perine at plus 950 to score? Why the heck not? We'll get some more Lisi bangers on the other side of the break here on Football Full Circle.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie. Just saying. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Federal officials approved a new type of pain pill designed to eliminate the risks of addiction and overdose associated with opioid medications like Vicodin and OxyContin. This update brought to you by Skyrizi. Explore proven results with Skyrizi. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration said it approved Vertex Pharmaceuticals' Jernavix for short-term pain that often follows surgery or injuries. It's the first new pharmaceutical approach to treating pain in more than 20 years, offering an alternative to both opioids and over-the-counter medications like ibuprofen and acetaminophen. This season, the NFL recorded its fewest number of concussions since it began tracking the data in 2015. The league announced Thursday the total of 182 concussions during games and practices in both the preseason and regular season represented a 17% drop from 2023. The previous low for the same period was 187 in 2022, not counting the 2020 season when COVID protocols canceled the preseason. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
If you love designer brands and you love clearance, then you're going to love this. Macy's is having a huge designer clearance event right now with incredible new designer markdowns on cold weather styles from BCBG, Hugo Boss, Michael Kors, and more. How big are the markdowns? How about Coach boots for $200 or less? So if you're looking for the things you love all in one place, come in and shop the designer clearance event at Macy's today. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. Just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, we continue your Super Bowl breakdowns from the mind, a beautiful one at that, of Joe Lisi on his final show on Football Full Circle before he heads to New Orleans in just a few days for Super Bowl week out on Radio row. All right, Lisi, we talked running backs. We know where you are looking. You know, and you have said what Kansas City needs to have success offensively against the NFL's best defense in Philadelphia. All right, now as we go to the wide receivers, right? Pass catchers could be tight ends as well, including Grant Calcaterra and, of course, Dallas Goedert, Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, all of that in the mix. Joe, the highest receiving yards prop for Super Bowl 59 is A.J. Brown of the Eagles at 70.5. Second highest number, 60.5 for KC's tight end in Travis Kelce. Let's start with Kansas City first and foremost. Very few, if any, playoff connections as prolific and historic as Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But outside of Kelce, what does Kansas City need? Which Chief needs to step up for KC to win a Super Bowl?
I think Marquise Brown, pro. Huh? That's what I think. I think Marquise Brown could be the X factor. Okay, 40.5 in that area. And
pro?
I'm calling you pro. How about that? What's up, pro? Yeah, I think Marquise Brown to me is, and I know Worthy stepped up and has emerged as the number one target for the most part. But again, still hot and cold at times, Xavier Worthy, you know, and so I'd rather go with Marquise Brown, a lower number, even DeAndre Hopkins. I think the veterans in this type of situation, you know, cheap numbers. Hear me out for a second. When you look at Tom Brady when he knocked off Mahomes, right? That game. He didn't go to all the playmakers. He went to the old Wiley veterans. He went to Gronkowski, and he went to, you know, Leonard Fournette, and he went to all the guys that he brought over, those veterans in the big spot. He didn't go to Evans and Godwin. And I think the same with Pat Mahomes in this, you know, in this type of instance. I think he would go to Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown has been a dominant force over the last couple of days early on to set the tone. Juju's another one. Huge plays over the middle. I mean, the past couple of games against Houston, and now what we saw against the Bills. So, again, I don't want to be where the money is. I don't want to be on Travis Kelce. Doesn't mean he can't step up and obviously have a big productive day. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying when you get cheaper numbers on these secondary wide receivers, we've seen Pat Mahomes in Super Bowls go to the auxiliary type of wideouts, especially when the game's on the line. And that's why, for me, I would go to Marquise Brown. I would go to potentially P. Ryan coming out of the backfield, cheap number, and even DeAndre Hopkins. You don't want to take the receiving total. Go to receptions then. That's the way I would play it.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, Joe, was the way I looked in that AFC Championship game against Buffalo. Really didn't come all that close. Mahomes has only thrown the football 51 total times in the two playoff games for KC. 25 against Houston, 177 yards, $117 of that to one guy in Travis Kelce. Xavier Worthy was the next targeted receiver, had 5 grabs for 45 yards. In the AFC title game against Buffalo, it was Xavier Worthy as the Chiefs' leading receiver. 6 grabs, 85 yards, I believe, on 9 targets as well. But at least he got, to your point, Juju Smith-Schuster in that game, 7 targets for Xavier Worthy, in the AFC Championship game. Juju Smith-Schuster, who was big for Kansas City back in 2022 against the Birds, 2 grabs, 60 yards. His prop just 2 days ago was 13.5. It's now 15 and a hook, which you still think he could probably get with 1 grab, 1 deep route across the middle. Boom, Smith-Schuster through his receiving yards number. Now let's go to the other side. Philadelphia. A.J. Brown, highest number for the game, highest number for the Birds, 70.5. Dallas Goedert, 52.5. Devontae Smith, 51 and a hook. Both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were huge in Super Bowl 57 against Kansas City. And we saw the reemergence of A.J. Brown, 6 grabs, 96 yards, and a touchdown in the NFC Championship game against Washington. Joe, how do you compare the receiving core for Philadelphia, including some of their tight ends?
Well, tight ends are going to be a way to play it, I believe, when you go up against Kansas City. And the reason why I say that is just look outside the Bills, who didn't utilize their tight ends enough, and gutless Dalton Kincaid. Isaiah Likely, week 1 with 100 yards receiving against Kansas City. Brock Bowers with 140 yards receiving. We saw Stone from L.A. and Will Dissly beat them, in terms of the receiving game, right? All tight ends. Dalton Schultz got to 60 yards in the divisional matchup. So is it going to be Goddard or is it going to be Calcaterra, with a cheap number? I suggest Goddard. Again, I think Goddard could be an X factor, big. He's an added blocker in terms of the run game as well. But I still like Calcaterra anytime touchdown, 22-1. But the main guy I didn't take AJ. I took Devontae Smith altered to 80+ receiving. I think he has a breakout performance.
He was that leading receiver, Devontae Smith, for Philadelphia and the game overall in Super Bowl 57. Now, Jalen Hurts threw for 304 yards as compared to only $182 for Mahomes. But Devontae Smith, 7 grabs, 100 receiving yards in Super Bowl 57. A.J. Brown, the same stat line that he had in the NFC Championship game this year against the Commanders as he had in the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago against KC. 6 grabs, 8 targets, 96 yards, touchdown. A little bit freaky in that way, but that was what A.J. Brown did. And Dallas Goedert, way back in Super Bowl 57, 60 receiving yards as well. 85 for Goddard on 7 grabs and 8 targets in the NFC Championship win against the Commanders. So, Joe, all to say, if Jalen Hurts is flying through that number of 210.5, that still seems minimal. Everybody could get involved in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, we talk about, distributing the football to make that defense think and account for every player out there. Running backs, tight ends, and wideouts, they all have to be a part of the passing game for both teams heading forward.
Yeah, which will be interesting, Joe, because we know how great the defenses are. We know how productive the defenses have been in limiting yards and points this year. But you go up and down the roster, there is so much talent on both sides. More of that conversation next.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi. Then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to SportsGrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network. Joe Lisi, as we continue to compare these two rosters, these two franchises, and how they match up for Super Bowl 59, We have not talked to coaches just yet. Where do you give the edge in coaching for Super Bowl 59 between the Chiefs and the Eagles?
Oh, you got to give it to Andy Reid. I mean, Andy Reid has won 2 straight Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes. And again, they've been there, done that. I mean, is that a knock on Sirianni? Absolutely not. Is that a knock on the staff of Philadelphia? Absolutely not. You have veteran coordinators in terms of Vic Fangio and now, soon to be head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Kellen Moore, that's the report. I mean, that's what they're saying. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to give it to Reid. I mean, it's pedigree, right? Until you knock out the champ, you can't give the coaching advantage to Sirianni. He's been close, and he did it in the regular season. Now he's got to do it in the Super Bowl. But again, I don't think it's Andy Reid versus, Callahan in Tennessee. It's not Andy Reid versus, some first-year head coach. I'm trying to think who's gutless on the college level that we can make the comparison. You want me to keep going? Yeah. Rhett Lashley and SMU. Yeah. Should I bash them? I mean, come on.
Gutless.
Well, they cost me money.
They're going to do an ACC championship.
It's not. All right, I'll make everybody in Philadelphia and PA happy. It's not like Andy Reid versus James Franklin who can't win a big game, right?
Hey.
I mean, let's right. I mean, come on.
But James Franklin surrounding himself with the best and brightest on the defensive side. That's now Jim Knowles in Happy Valley. And, of course, Vic Fangio there in Philadelphia under Nick Sirianni. Vic Fangio has been in the NFL in some capacity since 1986 in large part, looking for his first Lombardi trophy. Steve Spagnuolo on the other side for KC. If the Chiefs win, it's the 4th Super Bowl for Kansas City in the last 6 years. 4th Super Bowl championship, of course, 3rd in a row. Steve Spagnuolo became the Chiefs defensive coordinator in 2019. It really speaks to the success he has had. Of course, won a Super Bowl with the Giants back in 2007 as the DC of the G-Men there as well. Yeah, the coaching advantage, it goes to Kansas City, right? It's not even that Nick Sirianni is a liability, as some might say at certain junctures of the regular season. Andy Reid has the pedigree. Andy Reid has proven it, of course, since leaving Philadelphia. So coaching edge, Kansas City. Pretty close, I would think, in the rosters. You probably give the edge at the quarterback spot to KC, but maybe in the rest of the skill positions to Philadelphia. And a slight edge defensively, more than likely, Joe, to the Eagles just based on the stats, but KC not all that far behind. I bring it up because Super Bowl 57 2 years ago, on paper, talent-wise, the Eagles were a far better team. But Kansas City was able to win that game, as they often have, as an underdog or a short favorite in their playoff lives with Patrick Mahomes. This time around, it feels like the edges, really between both sides, are much tighter, much more narrow as we get ready for Super Bowl week.
Yeah, again, and I think, Philly's confident. Philly, we talk about how dominant Pat Mahomes and Kansas City have been winning Super Bowls, rightfully so, 10-0 at home throughout the playoffs and regular season, right? We're talking about a team on the other side. Forget Saquon for a second. This is a team that has won 15 of the last 16 games. I mean, outside of the game where Jalen Hurts gets hurt, they would have ran the table 16 straight games. I mean, think about that for a second. That's dominance. I mean, it's amazing in terms of what you just think about the body of work from the Philadelphia Eagles. That's that's amazing when you think about that run.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It absolutely is. They've covered 11 times in those 15 wins. They have been dynamic, Joe, defensively on both sides of the football. These are two great teams facing off in Super Bowl 59. We'll probably hear from you from New Orleans. We'll miss you here, Joe, on FFC. Safe travels, my man. Your final football full circle of the season on SportsGrid Radio. What's the first thing you're doing when you get to the Big Easy on Sunday?
Oh, I'm going to open up the suitcase and walk around and maybe have a glass of vino. How about that?
Yeah. Some Barolo down there in the corner. Sounds like a nice time. Kidding. Maybe eat some beignets. couple of carbs wouldn't hurt you. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.